Hi guys, this is S&DJR SNF88 speaking with a much overdue update on the railway room and Lyncombe Vale. So welcome to this 8th update on the railway room and Lyncombe Vale. And first of all, I must apologise for how long it has taken me to get round to producing this video. It's been a couple of months since the last update, but I've just been extremely busy during that time. It's been really hard to sort of, one, get round to filming this video, and two, actually working on the layout itself as well. But there has been a number of major milestones reached, and of course a few interesting additions as well, which we'll take a closer look at in this video. Of course, if you're watching this live as a premiere, feel free to get involved in the live chat down the side of the screen now. It's always great to hear your thoughts and feedback on the layout, and of course it's just nice to have a general chat once in a while with some of you guys in there as well. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into the update. So the first new addition to the railway room is of course the replica Pines Express headboard. Now this originally adorned the wall in my loft layout back at home, or I should say the family home, and it has since been brought down here and mounted on the wall above what will be the Combe down tunnel section, and as you can see it fits in there really nicely. The board simply slots on the mount, which is of course based on a lamp iron of a locomotive, so the board will actually fit on the front of a real loco if need be. And not only that, I recently purchased this. Now this is a Fox Transfers etched headboard, and it is of course again a Pines Express headboard. So we have a 1:1 scale headboard and of course a 1/76 scale headboard, which will hopefully be mounted on the front of my miniature Pines Express once the layout is ready. The Workbench has probably been the place that has seen the most action over the past couple of months, and it has taken on many roles in this time. First up, obviously as a workbench for creating a number of the projects you can see on in shot at the moment, but also as well as a photo booth, which it's currently set up in that formation here. So I've got a white background there and a white background here, and this allows me to do my photo shoots for work. So all the review images that you see in the railway modeler, the majority of them are shot by me on this workbench. So I'm really pleased with how it actually worked out, and I've really enjoyed picking up the photography skills on how to stack images so you get the full model in focus, and I've been using that for some of my own projects, including some of these models here. And it really has been quite an enjoyable process. I really have been enjoying my work on that front as well. But as well as obviously being a workbench and of course a photo booth, the board has also been, or workbench I should say, has been also doubling up as a layout. And I'm sure many of you know I've been doing a lot of sound edits recently, and this is basically I've just wanted to run some trains, and of course at the moment I can't, apart from obviously that photo plank. So what I've been doing is been using the theory which you've seen in my previous update, where I obviously plan to have a lift out section here. And you can see I just managed to get the photo plank in on that section. That's probably how big those micros will be. And once positioned into that area, I then obviously have a Pico back seam, which I pop in behind the photo plank, and then I connect up a section of Code 75 Pico Flexi Tracker each end, which is just long enough to accommodate a small tender loco and 3 coaches, which as you've seen is probably the maximum train that I've actually ran during these sound edits. The largest I've ran to date is of course the stunning Locomotion Models D-Class with the SECR Batman birdcage coaches, and that literally started just off the edge of the camera and finished just off the edge of the camera. But obviously with the sound edited to that clip, you get the effect of the train passing by, and it really does bring, you know, what is a 72 centimetre section of embankment to life. And yeah, I've just had real fun editing those sound edits, and I hope you enjoy them too. I've got a couple more in store, which I hope to bring to you in the not too distant future, and I've got a couple more planned as well, since I've obviously been, you know, bringing back and bringing down my rolling stock. And of course, obviously doing a few projects for the magazine as well. You know, it's been great fun, you know, doing a few of those edits in between, obviously working on the layout itself. So the main thing I have been focusing on over the past couple of months is this. Now this is the second viaduct, which is located in front of Combe Down Tunnel, and you would have seen me make a start on this in the previous update. Well, 3 months later, it is now a complete structure, or I say complete, it's near enough complete. There's still a few little things I plan to do, and of course need adding to it, which we'll discuss in a second. But anyway, here are some stills of the bridge, which obviously show in a lot better detail than I could get on my camcorder, and hopefully you'll see the amount of work that I've put in trying to capture the really sort of mix-match brick and stonework that this bridge is created from. And I'm just over the moon with how it has all turned out. It's been well worth the time and effort, and hopefully you guys will agree. So as you can see, I've obviously had to insert brickwork into certain areas, you know, cut out some of the stonework and then insert some bricks, which of course is a challenge in itself. But I've managed to get around to doing that, and I've tried my best focusing on the images that are obviously I took, and of course historical images of the bridge as well. My best to try and get these patches in the correct place, and of course the correct colour as possible as well, as not only that, they used 2 colours of brick as well. So they had red bricks and blue bricks. So I've tried my best to try and match this on the structure as well. You can see I've also added some of the finer detail now, so we also have some of the guttering here. Now this is a Model U, or part of the Model U range, and I've added this sort of guttering pipe here, which obviously is one of the drainage pipes from the bridge, and I've also added in the watermarks, which have been done with washes and powders. The overall sort of bridge has also, of course, received weathering on top of all the paint that's been done on there. So I've added a real sort of grimy effect. Because this bridge is in sort of a valley which has been sort of covered with trees, I've tried my best to try and capture the weathered effect that obviously would happen to all this masonry after being left, you know, in this sort of valley for years and years and years, which is pretty much how it looked like in all the pictures, even when the railway was in service. The one thing I have added to the structure at the moment is, of course, the railings, although these have been completed. What I plan to do with those is attach those once the bridge is in situ on the layout. The reason being is I've done this on Watery Bottom Viaduct where I've already attached them, and I've found that it's very easy to knock them and of course damage them, which is something that I don't want to do after putting all this hard work in on this bridge. So the idea is I'll do all the Celotex, do the scenery in that area, and then finally get around to attaching those at the end. The only other thing that needs doing is of course raising the track bed, but again that can only be done once the bridge is mounted in position. So with the viaduct pretty much complete, I turn my attention to Combe Down Tunnel. Now originally, like Devonshire Tunnel, I intended to use this. Now this is a Pico Model Scenes single mouth tunnel bore. Now this is pretty much how Devonshire Tunnel looks, so it was really ideal for using it on that section of the layout. However, once I started referring back to my images of Combe Down Tunnel, I found that the actual tunnel mouth itself was very, very different. So, a couple of days ago, this tunnel mouth started off life looking like that, but as you can see, it's now been heavily modified. So, on screen now, you should see a picture of the real tunnel bore here, and you can see that to the left and to the right, it doesn't have those sort of side supports which you see on the model. It actually has these sort of abutments, and these are made from stone, and of course, like the bridge nearby, they've been patched up with brickwork, so I've obviously got to do that again. And now we move on to the model, and this is obviously how it's looked after a couple of days work, and you can see that the top half, the retaining wall along the top, has obviously been replaced with brickwork, and then I've added in the pillars to either side. Now, these pillars, again, are not as simple as they seem. If you quickly glance at the image, you think that they are vertical, nice and simple. They're not. They're actually at a slight angle. So I've actually modelled that slight angle and incorporated it into the model, and I'm really pleased with how it's all come together. It's taken me a while to get the angles right, but I managed to cut them just at the right angle. Then I sanded them to sort of shape and fit, and then I obviously glued them together with plastic weld, which is made the world of difference when attaching these kits together. Then, of course, to the right-hand side of the actual tunnel mouth itself, we have the obligatory brickwork repair. So I spent a number of hours carving out the original stonework and adding in this sort of brickwork repair, and I think it's worked. I think it's come out quite well. It still needs a bit of filling yet, so do excuse the gap. I haven't got round to adding in the filler, which of course will obviously be blended in once I paint the actual structure as well. Then we come on to the pillar on the right, and once again, this has obviously got a brickwork repair, and I had quite a bit of fun with this one. I've obviously learned from the mistakes and you know, obviously the time that I've put into obviously stitching in brickwork on the Viaduct, and this little patchwork repair went really, really well. And as you can see, it is almost a near perfect match to what I cut out. It took quite a while, but once I put it in there, it literally slotted in like a puzzle piece. And once it's glued, it looks like a seamless repair, pretty much like the real patchwork repair on the structure. Now there's still a few more things to do. Of course, we need to add I need to add the brickwork on the top here, and I also need to add the retaining walls to either side. There was sort of I think it's a stone retaining wall on this side before it sort of blends into the hillside, and then a brick one with obviously bits of stone still left in there on the right hand side. So that is one thing I still need to get around to doing. And then of course finishing off the sort of the parapets as well. So I've got to do that on the back of the structure, and you can see obviously where I've used little sections here to sort of stitch it all together and keep it as one solid structure. But on a whole, I'm really, really pleased with how this is looking so far, and it's actually quite fun to try and looking at the pictures and trying to create something you've actually seen in real life. It's a challenge, but it's well worth it. So if you are thinking about modelling a real structure, give it a go. It's something I've put off for years, and since I've started building this layout, I've found real enjoyment in trying to recreate something from an image. It is great fun, and you learn a lot of skills while doing it. So anyway, let me know what you think. Do the structures look the part? And what do you think in general? We're going to quickly move over onto the baseboard now, and I'm going to temporarily pop these into position to hopefully give you guys a feel of what I'm trying to achieve here. And something that, one thing I'm a bit worried about is, will the track actually fit? So we're going to move over to the board now and see how they position onto the layout. So here are the two structures in situ on the baseboard, and hopefully this will give you a bit more of an idea on how this space will look or what I'm trying to achieve in this particular area, rather than just a storage area for the modelling materials at the moment. But as you can see, I've got a rough sort of foot plan of where I want the viaduct to go, and also the same for the positioning of the tunnel mouth. Now this is all rough at the moment. Of course I will finalise this once I get round to cutting the Celotex, and of course positioning the track on the workbench, as of course I need to make sure that one, the trains can get around on the workbench, and two, the curve coming off of the lift out section is not too sharp that it doesn't sort of tie in with the scene, and two, the larger locomotives of rolling stock don't hit the edges of the bridge, because of course the bridge is extremely narrow, much like the real thing. But obviously being a model railway and trying to get it to fit into the room, the curve has to be slightly sharper here. So it's going to be interesting to see whether the track will fit on there, but I do have faith in it, and hopefully it will work out in the end. But yeah, I hope that gives you a rough idea of what I'm trying to achieve on this board. One thing I am going to do, once the tunnel mouth has been fixed into position, I'm going to add another shelf to the workbench, which is probably going to be the same height as the top of the tunnel there. And that will allow me extra storage space for some of the mess you see here. But also a handy mounting point for a camera. So when the scene is complete, I'll try and recreate another one of Ivo Peter's famous shots from this section of line, which of course was looking down from the top of the tunnel mouth above Combe Down Tunnel, looking onto the viaduct, watching the engines just as they come over the top of the summit and enter into the tunnel itself. So since completing my rake of S&DJR coaches, which you have seen in a previous update, I decided on focusing on building up a rake of goods wagons. And as you can see here, we got a bit of a selection of vehicles I am currently working on. Now these are by no means 100% accurate, but they are based on similar designs of vehicles that were used during this period on the Somerset Dorset Railway. And they are currently in the process of having an S&DJR livery applied. So starting off, we have this, which is a wonderful model. It is the new Curnow Model Railway Centre LSWR road van. Now this van bears a striking resemblance to a van that was used on the Somerset and Dorset Railway, and the BR Grey version with the grey running plate really does lend itself to this sort of replicating this sort of vehicle. So what I've done is I've removed the BR insignia on there, the BR running number and the sort of the tear number. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add on my Somerset and Dorset transfers that I've managed to obtain, and hopefully I'll create a similar looking van. You'll give the feel of that van once it's been positioned in a rake. It really is a lovely model. I highly recommend it. I've had the opportunity to see all the different liveries that have been released, obviously working for the magazine, and they really are worth the wait for these. They are absolutely lovely models. Moving on, we have these two Batman open wagons. It is a 7-plank and a 5-plank. Now these you might have seen before, about a year ago now, or over a year ago in fact. I was working on these in the hotel room when I obviously started my job at the magazine. I was working out of a hotel room, and I started off sort of renumbering these into War Department livery. Well, I never really finished them, and the LMS Grey really does lend itself to S&DJR Grey. So what I'm going to do is obviously add some S&DJR markings on these, and they'll be pretty much good to go. Then we have two Dapol Conflat wagons. Now I purchased these last year unpainted with the intention of using these on Fry's Somerdale. The containers have since been repainted into Fry's Somerdale livery, although they haven't featured in a video to date. But I sort of left the flatbeds in the box as I didn't really know what to do with them. The idea was, it was just cheaper to buy the models unpainted with the wagon for the Conflat container than it actually was just to buy the container separately. So I was wondering whether to paint these in Great Western or BR, and I thought, well, why not paint them in S&DJR livery? Of course, it's a bit fictitious here, but it's a way of bulking up the rake. And once the sole bar had been painted grey, it really does sort of lend itself to being used as an S&DJR vehicle, and I'm really pleased with how they're looking so far. Of course, again, they need to have the transfers added. You can see I've started picking out some of the details, such as the builder's plate in black. and other bits and pieces. The wheels have also been replaced. I've replaced the Dapol wheels with Batman spoked wheels, which again has made the wagons look a lot more finer, which I'm really pleased with. Then we come on to another brake van. Now this is a Batman Midland brake van. Now this is prototypical. The Somerset Dorset had 2 or 3 of these towards the around 1923, I believe. They were sort of brought in as many of the older brake vans were being beginning to fall apart, from what I gather. So the Midland Railway provided 3 brake vans, which apparently briefly carried S&DJR livery. Now I haven't seen an actual physical real image of this van in S&DJR livery, but there are a couple of modelers that have already depicted these in S&DJR livery, and they are 2 very different liveries. You've either got the S&D on the side, or you got the full S&DJR. Now I'm not sure what I plan to go on here, whether just to have S&D or whether to have S&DJR, but I've already removed all the BR insignia, so it's going to be one of those things that when I get the transfers out, I'm going to see which ones will look best on there, and then I'll go with that. But on a whole, I'm really pleased with those wagons so far. Finally, we come on to the wagon that you probably have been looking forward to seeing. Now, this wagon is actually a 3D print, and it's been printed by none other than Sam's Trains. He recently purchased a 3D printer, and I'm sure you guys have seen his videos. And anyway, he messaged me one day saying that he got this 3D printer and he was looking for inspiration for wagons. And he was mentioning the next wagon he was going to be working on for his sort of generic chassis, which you could sort of clip the bodies onto, was a box van. So I recommended none other than an S&DJR box van. So you can imagine my surprise a few days later when it turned up in the post. So I said to him that, thank you ever so much, and I'll see what I could do with it. And this is the end result. As you can see, it's now got all its S&DJR insignia, inspired by, of course, the real van. It's even got the little builder's plate on the chassis, which I think is a really, really nice transfer that was included with the set. And of course, I'll be adding those to the other wagons as well. But yeah, it's come out really, really well. Of course, it is slightly underscaled compared to the real vehicles. But I've decided to nickname it the S&DJR Mini Road Van, obviously because of its size. But there were sort of vans of this size, especially some of the older vehicles that the S&D had, so it's not too far-fetched. But, obviously with a few little details I've added in the brake rigging and a few other things, the model really does scrub up nicely. And as you've probably seen from Sam's videos, he's really been taken by this 3D printer, and some of the models he's been producing recently are absolutely stunning. So I can't wait to see what else he comes up with. Of course, this was not the only body he sent. He also sent an open wagon body, which again is currently just awaiting to have its transfers fitted. But you can see here I've already painted all the sort of the latches and other things to make it sort of pop out. I've been following an image of a very similar sort of ballast wagon that the S&DJR had, and that's where I've taken inspiration from for this particular wagon. But that's not the only rolling stock projects I've been working on. I've also been working on a number of guides and construction articles for Railway Modeller magazine. First up we have this, which is the new Parkside 13-ton hopper kit, and basically I did this as a construction guide for the July 2021 issue, where I basically assemble the model and paint it. Next we have this, which is of course a Batman 16-ton mineral wagon. Now this has been weathered and detailed with DCC Concepts weathering powders, which again we've also received in for review, and I had to put them to the test, so I decided to weather this particular model. Now as you can see, the powders really do lend themselves to this process, and it completely brings the model to life, and this is something I hope to emulate on my own wagons when I get the time to do so. So I really look forward to using these powders on those wagons when I get the chance. Finally, we have this, which is of course a Hornby T9, which for the latest construction guide in the August 2021 issue, so hopefully that'll be on sale when this video goes out, I've actually renumbered it to 30120, which is of course the preserved example of the class. Now, I've decided to finish her as to how she looked when she was in service on the Somerset Dorset for a week in the late 1950s. And as you can see, she's got the lake crest on the tender. She's also got a sort of a rather sort of polished, clean look. Now, this is obviously based on a picture that Ivo Peters took when she was on shed at Bath Green Park after bringing in an express, or just about to go onto an express, because she had a sort of express head code lamps on the front. But yeah, I've decided to sort of try and recreate her as best I could from that image, and I'm really pleased with how she's turned out, and I can't wait to see her running on the layout. And finally, you might have seen I made a recent visit to the Somerset Dorset Railway at Midsummer Norton for their Mixed Traction Gala. I'll pop a little link at the top of the screen now. But while I was there, I met their resident artist, Jane Riley, and she does a number of paintings of various scenes, and of course of the Somerset Dorset Railway, both from pictures taken back in its heyday, and of course how it is now as it is in preservation. And while I was there, I got chatting with her, and I was looking through some of her prints of her paintings that she's done, and one of which was this. Now this is a print of her painting of Ivo Peters' shot of 53810 blasting out of Devonshire Tunnel, and I thought, wow, I've just got to have that. That's just got to sit on the wall in the railway room. And she's done an absolutely wonderful job. And as you can see, that is what I'm trying to go for here. So yeah, so I'm really pleased with this. I thought it'd be really nice to actually place above the tunnel mouth. It might be a bit too big for that. I think if it's got a smaller frame, it might just fit. But we'll have to see. If not, I'm sure I'll find another space in here to pop this. But it's just such a wonderful painting, and of course the real picture that Ivo Peters took, which was of course in black and white because his stills were in black and white, is just as emotive. It really does show and capture the essence of the Somerset and Dorset Railway, and that is why I'm such a big fan of this railway. And of course, as you know, I do have a model of 53810, and of course I look forward to trying to recreate this scene on the layout at some point in the future. So once again, I guess that's all for this update, and as always, I hope you enjoyed the progress on the railway room and Lyncombe Vale. Hopefully the next update won't take as long to produce as it has with this one. I do apologise once again for how long it's taken me to get around to doing this video, but as you know, work comes first, and you've just got to be motivated to do these things. And of course, I've been really focusing on that bridge and the tunnel mouth, and I am over the moon with how those structures have turned out. And if I could get the rest of the layout, sort of to that standard, I'll be extremely happy, and I'm sure you guys will be once I actually get around to doing the scenery, of course. I think the next step, as mentioned at the end of the previous update, was to get the Celotex done in that area, because as mentioned with the dust and other things, there's no point in doing the scenery here if it's just going to get ruined with the mess that I'm going to be producing over there. So hopefully next update I will get round to doing that. Although now that I've mentioned that, I probably won't. It's one of those things. You got a bit of a laugh and joke about that, but hopefully we'll get that done for the next update. So until next time, this has been S&DJR 88 speaking, and thanks for watching.